Hello, everyone. Here is our part 2. If you haven't watched part 1, watch it first so you can understand the story. True horror stories. The beach. Toby and I pulled into the gravel driveway in the late afternoon, and I have to admit, I was impressed. The house sat in total isolation, right where the dunes leveled out, built from weathered cedar planks that had bleached to a pale gray in the salt air. Large floor-to-ceiling windows faced the water, offering an unobstructed view of the tide rolling in. Inside, the wide plank oak floors were scarred slightly by years of tracked-in sand, and the furniture was low profile and functional. A wide wraparound deck offered plenty of space for a few heavy chairs, positioned perfectly to catch the offshore breeze. It wasn't an ornate place, but it felt solid and intentional. I planned to spend at least 2 weeks here, so I'd packed everything we could possibly need. Toby's toys, his favorite blanket, which were just some of my old clothes my mother sewed together for him, and a bag of expensive dog food he always refuses to eat. For myself, I'd brought my luggage, 2 cases of red wine, and an archtop guitar for when I felt the need to entertain my half-deaf dog. The nearby town didn't seem particularly lively, but it had the essentials. There were a few grocery stores and, more importantly, a small vet clinic only 30 minutes away. Knowing medical help was close for Toby calmed the worst of my fears. I parked the car on the gravel drive and left my bags in the back. Unpacking could wait. I wanted a steak, and Toby deserved one too after 10 hours in the passenger seat. The local grocery store reeked of cheap lemon bleach, unsuccessfully masking the stench of sulfurous rot, all rising from a sticky floor my shoes clung to. I headed straight for the back, where a woman in a blood-stained apron was restocking the display case. She looked up and grinned, her eyes locking onto me with the kind of intensity that usually precedes a long, unwanted conversation. "I'll take the whole rib roast," I said, pointing at the massive marbled slab of beef that sat like a trophy behind the glass of the butcher's counter. "New in town? Or just passing through?" she asked, wiping her hands on a rag. "I'm new," I said. "Well, welcome. That's a lot of ribeye for one man. Planning a party?" "Just for me and the dog." She didn't take the hint. "A dog man. I like that. What's his name? Where are you folks settling in? I might know the place." "Toby," I replied, checking my watch. "North end of the beach. Just moved in." The chatter stopped. She froze with a tray of ground beef halfway to the shelf. The friendly crinkles around her eyes flattened out, and she leaned over to me, her voice dropping. "North End? The old beach house?" she asked. The playfulness was gone. "My grandmother won't even drive past that stretch of road after sundown. She says the water feels wrong there. She spent 80 years on this coast and claims she's heard things coming from the surf that don't belong to any animal she knows." She wrapped my roast in white paper, taping it shut with a sharp snap. "Just watch yourself. If you start hearing noises or anything that sounds like a person but isn't, you stay inside. Keep your doors locked." "Thank you," I said, reaching for the package. "I'll take that into account." She didn't smile back as she handed me the meat. I walked out into the humid afternoon air, the weight of the steaks in my hand. "Local superstition, nothing more," I said to myself. People in small towns always need something to be afraid of to keep life interesting. The drive back was quiet, the car's tires humming against the asphalt until we hit the gravel of the driveway again. I spent the next 30 minutes hauling our lives inside, the wine, the bags, and Toby's kibble. I kept things simple for dinner. I seared the steaks in a cast-iron pan, the smell of rendered fat filling the kitchen. Toby got his in a bowl on the floor, and I sat at the counter with mine, propping my phone up to watch some YouTube videos. By the time I'd finished the meat, I was well into the first bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon. The alcohol settled in quickly, blurring the edges of the day. I realized the house had gone too quiet. Toby wasn't under the table hoping for scraps. He was standing at the floor-to-ceiling window, his body as rigid as a statue. His ears were perched forward, twitching slightly
as if he were trying to track a frequency I couldn't hear. I leaned back, swirling the last of the glass. "Seeing some fish, Toby," I muttered. He didn't move. Curious, and a bit slowed by the wine, I stood up and joined him at the glass. The sun was long gone, leaving the ocean a vast, churning black. The waves were rhythmic and heavy, but as I squinted into the dark, something caught the light of the moon. Out past the first break, something was breaking the surface. It was long, spindly, and a deep crimson red, like branches of coral or a jagged piece of a shipwreck. It bobbed with the waves, but it felt off. Sometimes it seemed to cut through them, drifting steadily along the shoreline. I stared at it, trying to make sense of the shape. It looked too organic for wood, too stiff for seaweed. After a few minutes, the red shape dipped and didn't come back up. It either sank or moved into the deeper shadows of the coast.
Weird, I breathed, the wine making me feel more fascinated than afraid. I looked down at Toby. All right, enough. Bedtime. He didn't budge. He stayed locked on the spot where the thing had vanished, a low tremor starting in his chest. "Toby, come," I said, louder this time. Nothing. I had to call him 3 more times, finally raising my voice enough to break the spell. He finally snapped his head toward me, looking startled, his eyes wide and glassy in the dim light of the kitchen. His deafness is really getting worse, I thought to myself. He followed me to the bedroom, but he didn't curl up on his blanket. He lay by the door, facing the hallway, tilting his head and listening to the tides.
And this is where the story ends. If you like stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you are always updated with our newly uploaded videos.